This is my favorite minimum pair. The reason it's my favorite because it's a little bit more complicated. It's the same, many times it's the same letter, but that letter has two different pronunciations. We're talking about the S and the S. The S and the S. Let me share my screen with you. It's my favorite minimum pairs. It's the one I love teaching. You see, we're talking about the S and the S. But the difference is the S in the first one, ASS, the S sounds like an S, ass. All right? That's a word that you have to be careful about. Well, yeah, but if you're talking about jackass, no, you don't. Which is like a mule or horse or something that you ride, jackass, for example. Not if you're talking about a part of your body. That you have to be a little bit careful about. But then there's as. That S is pronounced like a Z. And people pronounce it that way and are totally unaware that they pronounce it that way. Because in English, at least in school, you're taught to separate the way something sounds to the way that it's spelled. So many times you will associate the way something is spelled with the word, and you will not realize that you're not pronouncing it the way that it's spelled. So many times it has to be brought to the attention of the English speaker that ASS, ass, jackass, which like I said is kind of mule or donkey, or not horse, but mule or donkey. Also, it's a part of the anatomy, one's anatomy, but it's a vulgar term. They're not aware that they're pronouncing it ASS, ass, jackass, ass. And they're not aware that they're pronouncing as, he is as tall as I am. They're pronouncing the S like a Z. It has to be brought to your attention a lot of times, or does. Not aware that the S is being pronounced like a Z, or is, that the S is being pronounced like a Z. That's why it's my favorite. Because even native speakers go like, oh my God, I didn't realize I did that. But you do. Okay. Alice, Alice. Here the C, not here, the C is not pronounced like a C, it's pronounced like an S. And the S is not pronounced like an S, is being pronounced like a Z. And then people wonder why English can be confusing. Because the S in one word is pronounced differently than the S in the second word, even though they're spelled exactly the same, no uppercase, lowercase, no accent, although in English you don't hardly ever use an accent, no accent, these are pronounced two different ways. The S one says use, the use, that's a noun. The second one, use, that's the S is being pronounced like a Z. That's a verb, to use. So one is use, use. Those are homographs, two words written exactly the same. There is absolutely no difference in the word, but one is pronounced differently than the other. Well, this is one reason why you have homophones. You have letters that are pronounced differently in words that look the same. So if you want to have the S and it's pronounced like an S, use. If you have the S but it's pronounced like a Z, use. One is a noun, one is a verb. Sue, zoo. Now here you have the S being pronounced like an S and the Z being pronounced like a Z. Days, days. The only difference is that the S in the first word is being pronounced like an S and the Z is being pronounced like a Z. So the Z is never pronounced like an S. The C is never pronounced like a Z. The S is pronounced like an S. The S is pronounced like a C. And the S is pronounced like the S and like a Z. But the Z is always pronounced like a Z. That's it. Let's go. Mace, maze. Face, phase. Here the S is being pronounced, because otherwise it would be the same pronunciation, face, face. But it's face, phase. That C makes it into a minimum pair rather than into a homophone. Advice, advise. The C is being pronounced like an S, and the S is being pronounced like a Z. Or like the Brits say, said, right? Said. Lice, lies. Ice, eyes. Otherwise, if they were both being pronounced like an S, they would be homophones. Rice, rise. C like an S, S like a Z. Peace, peas. Cease, seas. Dice, dies. Grace, graze. See, it's not a problem if the S is being pronounced like an S, the Z is being pronounced like a Z, and the C is being pronounced like a Z. The problem is when nobody tells you, or you can't tell by anything in the word how the letter is supposed to be pronounced. You can't tell. That's where the problem comes in. And the only reason I know, because I'm an English speaker. That's the only reason I know. There's no rule about, well, if it comes before the E, if it comes after the I, if it comes before this or that. No. Course, cause. Decease, disease. Fierce, fears. Peace, peace. Spice, spies. Fleece, fleas. A piece, appease. Brace, braise. Diffuse, diffuse, diffuse. The only difference, and I barely made that distinction, is that in the first one, diffuse, the S is being pronounced like an S, and in the second one, diffuse, 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 the S is being pronounced like a Z. Those are homographs. Hints, hens. Place, plays. Cease, sees. Now that is hard to do, to make the distinction. Cease, sees. Now I always, you see these two words? I always get them pronounced incorrectly. Precedent, president. I have to be very conscious of the way I'm pronouncing the C, not the C so much, but the S when it's pronounced like a Z. Precedent. And for the longest time, I wouldn't say the two words, I wouldn't say them together. I especially wouldn't say precedent, the one with the C, because I would pronounce it incorrectly. President. It wasn't until I began to study English, the language and the etymology and the history, that I began to understand pronunciation and why certain words gave me problems. Said, zed. Walls, walks. Another problem. Loose, lose. I would get the spelling all the time mixed up. Loose, something loose means it's not tight. And that's pronounced with an S and it's double O. Something, to lose something, one O, and the S is pronounced like a Z, and it's a verb. Loose is an adjective. Zone, zone. Move it down. Niece, knees. This is a homophone. This is a homograph also, because I had to see the word, and because it's capitalized, and I have the word knees, I know I'm not going to pronounce nice, because Nice also means nice, but when it's a city in France, it's Nice, knees. And you have to do all these tricks, and it's like within seconds of each other. Lacy, lazy. Mince, men's. Sipped, zipped. Cease, seize. Price, prize. Brace, braise. Once again, oh my God, I'm seeing a lot of homographs. One is the S, the first one, the S is pronounced like an S. The second one, the S is pronounced like a Z. Let me see if I can do it. See, if I don't have a context, sometimes it can be hard, even though I've practiced and I know this. Excuse, excuse. Excuse is a noun, to make an excuse. But if I could do it in context, I'm fine. But a lot of times if I just see them, I'm saying, oh, I gotta pronounce like a Z. You know, that goes through my mind. Excuse, to have an excuse, that's a noun. Excuse me, that's a verb, and the S is pronounced like a Z. I love things like this. Racer, razor. Bruce, bruise. Very close together, the pronunciation. Ace, A's, very close. Once again, misuse, misuse. These are homographs. Sauce, saws, saws. Trace, trays. Case, case. His, his. His is pronounced with the, although it's spelled with an S, it's pronounced with a Z. Let me do one more. Fleece, please. I love the S versus the Z because it makes me work. It makes me work. Well, all of these minimum pairs do. because I have to consciously make a distinction between sounds that I normally do without thinking when I'm speaking. Right? Because when I'm speaking, I'm thinking of the object, not necessarily the word. But when I see the word in front of me, it can be confusing. And I'm a native speaker. I'm a native speaker. So I like minimum pairs, but my favorite is the SH versus the Z. Oh, I also like a lot the CH versus the SH and the S versus the SH. Got to get that tongue and the back of your mouth ready to pronounce it correctly. When you're speaking, no, it's not a problem. The problem comes in when you're looking at it and you realize that even though it's an S, you don't pronounce the S, you pronounce a Z. Right? Sometimes you say, but this is Z, but it's an S, what? So this is Corella Ficklin McLean and welcome, WYLCOME, welcome.com. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for coming to my different sites. And if you would be so kind, please subscribe so I can get as many subscriptions as possible. Tell your friends so I can get as many views as possible. I'd like to thank you. Let me stop sharing. I hope you have a good day. Thank you.